Over the years, Ted refused most offers to merchandise his characters as toys or tools for advertising.
I mean, you know, it kind of stabbed at the heart of an agent whose normal job is to get as much money as possible for his client. Ted was not indifferent to money. He liked making money, but it was never the primary objective.
As the father of contemporary children's literature, Geisel was a frequent guest of honor at social events promoting his books and literacy.
He liked his work getting recognized and being recognized. He was very gratified by the influence it held, but that was his work. And he had a lot of distrust and wariness of any efforts to kind of make him an icon.
He said, I'm not interesting to talk to, but they expected, I guess, that maybe if a man who wrote all these wonderful stories and tales, that when he spoke, they would be the same way. And he was not that way.
He was, after all, a grown-up human being, and I had somewhere a wonderful photograph of Ted at an autographing event, and somebody turned up in a Grinch suit, which is so monumentally awful that all I can do when I look at the picture is delight in Ted's take to the camera, which is this kind of, you know.
In 1975, Ted experienced an affliction that put his livelihood in jeopardy. His eyesight began to fail, making work impossible. 3 years of surgeries followed before his vision improved.
He said, look at the color around us. Look at the brilliance. Look at this, look at that. It was quite a trip home.
A jubilant Ted dedicated his next book to his eye surgeon. It's a celebration of reading and seeing.
Young cat, if you keep your eyes open enough, oh, the stuff you will learn, the most wonderful stuff. The more that you read, the more things you will know. The more that you learn, the more places you'll go. If you read with your eyes shut, you're likely to find that the place where you're going is far, far behind. So, that's why I tell you to keep your eyes wide. Keep them wide open, at least on one side.
As Theodor Geisel approached his 80s, his health continued to decline. He had a heart attack and in 1983 underwent treatment for cancer beneath his tongue from decades of smoking.
When I knew he was sick, you know, and I'd call and first thing I'd say is, how are you feeling? He wouldn't even answer that question. He'd skip right on to, well, what's new in New York, or what's going on at Random House or something.
To me, it was maintenance. No matter what system had a problem, we'd get it going again and it would be fine.
I've often said she was like a geisha. Her job was taking care of Ted. Audrey added many, many constructive years to Ted's life, unquestionably. He went out with Audrey a lot, and I think that that also helped kind of keep him alive and lively.
Age and infirmity had no effect on Ted's lifelong juvenile delinquency. 1 hour into a charity ball held at a La Jolla department store, he was nowhere to be found.
Judith and I tracked him down in the women's shoe department with all those Ferragamo boxes stacked all around him, and he had one of his art fiber pens. And he was marking down the prices on all of them because he thought they were far too expensive.
Geisel wrote fewer beginner books and devoted more time to stories for older children. In 1984, he addressed the arms race between the United States and Soviet Union in the Butter Battle book.
And I think it was clearly the statement of an elder statesman of the publishing world, something he wanted to say to everybody and to sort of ratchet down the hysteria of confrontation that he felt was going on around the world at the time.
The Ukes and the Zooks, separated by a great wall, butter their bread differently. Distrustful of one another, an arms race escalates in Seussian fashion.
You may fling those hard rocks with your triple sling jigger, But I also now have my hand on a trigger. Then Daniel, the Kickapoo Spaniel, and I marched back toward the wall with our heads held up high while everyone cheered and their cheers filled the sky. Fight, fight for the butter side up, do or die.
Eventually, each side develops its own egg-shaped bomb capable of annihilating the other. For the first time in his career, Ted Geisel received hate mail from parents who accused him of scaring their children with the prospect of Armageddon.
This is brainwashing our children. And it wasn't, because it didn't even take a stand. It was a completely open-ended ending, which is the reason I think it really works as a children's book, because you really can discuss the whole thing.
Grandpa, I shouted, be careful. Oh, gee, who's going to drop it? Will you or will he? Be patient, said Grandpa. We'll see. We will see.
He was a straightforward leftist. I mean, there's no issue on which he did not take the straightforward left-wing position. But his contribution to the growing up process of tens of millions of American children is magnificent, and it's a legacy that will go on for 100 years.
At the height of the national butter battle debate, Theodor Geisel was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for Literature, acknowledging his entire canon of children's books. Although the face of the real Dr. Seuss appeared on front pages across the country, many kids continued to imagine the author as the Cat in the Hat or Santa Claus. That didn't bother Ted one bit.
It didn't matter to him to have his name up in lights, and he didn't particularly like being recognized in restaurants. He really preferred having a private life.
The physical portion was saying, I've done a noble job for you, and I'm growing weary. But not the brain. It's right there.
Hated going to doctors, and I think the doctors sort of hated to see him. I don't think he was an easy patient.
To ease his frustrations, Ted began writing a book on the indignities of aging.
Just why are you here? You're not feeling your best. You've come in for an eyesight and solvency test. Your escape plans have melted. You haven't a chance. For the next thing you know, both your socks and your pants and your drawers and your shoes have been lost for the day. The oglers have blossomed like roses in May, and silently, grimly, they ogle away.
Released as a book for adults, You're Only Old Once topped the New York Times bestseller list. Within a year, over 1 million copies had been sold.
And you'll know once your necktie's back under your chin and Norval has waved you Godspeed with his fin, you're in pretty good shape for the shape you are in.
Previously, when I did just kids' books, I would be invited every morning to go to have cocoa among the kindergarten set. Now I get invited to have martinis at old folks' homes.
Where would you rather be?
Somewhere in between, I don't know where.
Theodor Geisel dedicated You're Only Old Once to his fellow senior citizens from Dartmouth's graduating class of 1925.